Hi, I'm Imogen Lamport from Inside Out Style.
And I'm Jill Chivers from shopyourwardrobe.com.
Now, do you have a style icon, Jill?
No, Imogen, I don't. I cannot point to one single person that is in the public eye, celebrity, etc., that I would use as a style muse. There are lots of stylish women, and I certainly acknowledge and admire the contribution they've made to the world in terms of their own style. The women in general that I admire are somewhat encapsulated by the advanced style movement, the book, R.E. Seth Cohen, the movie, in that they are women who are true to their own style. They are not following a formula. They are clearly breaking rules, although they are holding onto a handrail, a lot of them. They have an aesthetic that they're going for. And what I love about what they represent is the sense of personal choice and self-expression. And to me, they are icons in that regard, that they are women who are saying, regardless of age, regardless of youthfulness or otherwise, that you can feel good who you are and the way that you choose to dress. And I love that.
Do you think it's one of those things? I think I grew up reading fashion magazines, yet I don't think I've ever copied anything that's been in a fashion magazine.
Yeah.
And particularly these days where I often look at a lot of stuff and I go, well, that's not very nicely put together.
Yeah.
Because it's made to actually stop you. It's made to actually slightly jar your senses, otherwise you just flip through a magazine and you wouldn't actually look at it.
Really, that's the purpose of it.
There is purpose there that, it's not always necessarily made to be beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
So, the images, they have to keep changing up because otherwise, if it was just too samey, I guess, then we wouldn't really look at them. And I think in the way that these days bloggers, there's a lot of, creativity and inspiration you can get on the internet through bloggers and other people. And this is where Advanced Style started as a blog.
Yes.
That where, you can, and another thing I love about Advanced Style too is the fact that what it's giving you is the permission to go outside very straight classic boundaries, which I think especially as women get older, they feel they have to fit in a mould.
Yes.
And so it's giving you permission to stray outside those boundaries and express who you are as a person. But not everybody wants to, almost wear a costume. And some of it does go towards costume.
Yes. It's a cataclysm of colour and textures in some of the outfits that are represented. But what I do like is how they borrow from new and from vintage and from younger clothing labels through to more classic items. I think that there's something to be learned from that it's not about painting by numbers, following a formula and you'll always look good. There's more to self-expression through clothing than that. And the other thing about blogging is really interesting as well. I find myself turning away from fashion blogging, not that I've ever been big into it, because I believe that there's a commercial imperative that's often behind a lot of the items that are represented, that there's a commission that's being paid to the people who are putting those items forward. That may not be true in all those cases, but I feel that can't help but influence the person who's writing the piece. And what I love about what you do, and there are several other bloggers, that you're really a style blogger.
Yes.
It's universal. It's got nothing to do with what's necessarily in, although you write the occasional piece about the Pantone colour of the year and how to wear that. But generally what you write about are universal principles that can help a woman at any stage of her life to find her own style. Yes.
And I think, that's why I do it, because I think that that's an important thing, is understanding that self-expression. But also too is sometimes we might think, well, and I don't personally have any style icons, and I haven't really ever had any, and I can admire other people's style, but I'll often look at them and go, well, that's great for them. They've got a very different body shape.
Yes.
Those things wouldn't work for me, but I can appreciate what they do.
Yes.
But one of the things that I've actually found the most useful thing is actually playing in my wardrobe.
Exactly.
So actually going, well, what ways can I wear this? And if I put a belt on it, what would it look like? And if I put a wide belt on, or a narrow belt, or I did this or I did that, what are different ways I could actually play with this garment? If I tucked it in, if I half tucked it, if I, what's actually going to create something? And that's often where you're going to find, your style is when you actually play rather than just copy people. But look, honestly, it's one of those things these days that if you are going, well, I like that and it represents my style, give it a go if you like how somebody looks.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's to me the value in fashion represented online and in magazines, television, and other places is as a source of inspiration. And the inspiration might start out like this, and by the time you've played with it and morphed with it and turned it into your own, it doesn't resemble that remotely, but it has served a useful purpose because it's given you a jumping off point or a new idea or a new thought about combining things in a new way. And so much of us want novelty in our wardrobes. And novelty to you, as we've discussed in a previous video, is quite different to my form of novelty. And we can all get what we need. And I think the touchstone has to be the self. It has to be my inner voice of wisdom and what suits me, my lifestyle, my personality, all the things that are important to me, and avoiding the copying.
Yeah. And I think too is if we are taking inspiration from somebody, you don't need to own those exact same items.
Exactly.
You know, you can have your own version of it. It's very much like putting a recipe together that I'm making, you know, something for dinner or whatever, and I've got a recipe, but say I don't have the ginger. What can I use instead of the ginger?
Yeah. I'm sure someone out there can answer that question. I personally couldn't, but somebody would know.
I use a galangal. But it's one of those things is we don't, you know, like if you're a good enough cook, you can look at a recipe and go, well, I can adapt that.
Yes, which is
and
why
I think
when
that's
people...
the same.
Sorry again.
That's right.
When people say, here's my favourite labels, I'm always flummoxed by that question when I see it in a, you know, a fashion questionnaire. I think, I couldn't tell you a label that, I mean, there's the occasional person, you know, Charlie Brown uses a lot of animal print, but apart from that, I mean, she's not even a favourite label necessarily. I always find that the most, it stupefies me, that question. I have no idea what favourite labels I might have.
Because you don't have any, but for a lot of people, they might actually find, though, that their favourite label is because it fits them. That it's fairly guaranteed to fit, and they may like the aesthetic of it.
Yes.
So in general, they'll go, the aesthetic of that works for me, and the styles, the shapes fit. So they're cutting for a block that's related to their body shape. So that's often where people get a favourite label from.
Yes, true. Yeah.
And they probably haven't shopped as broadly too, you know, as well, where you might have...
We have shopped all over the world.
Yes.
I think the Diane von Furstenberg quote that really resonates for me is, I became the woman I wanted to be. And that really means something to me. And in that regard, through that lens, I want to be my own style icon. I want to be the person that's most meaningful to me when it comes to how I dress myself and how I express myself and you know, how I manage the process of getting older and continuing to feel good about myself and my place in the world and my contribution to the world. And I think that's every woman's challenge, is to become your own style icon.
Great thoughts, Jill.